Welcome back, everybody. Here we are with issue 86. Let's go ahead and get started. This one is the Hammerhead Corvette, manufactured by the Carillion Engineering Corporation. The Hammerhead considerably predated the more familiar CR series Corvettes. Those later vessels show the design influence of the smaller Hammerheads, particularly in their basic layout, which was marked by a relatively spacious cockpit leading back from which the tube of the main fuselage with airlocks on either side just forward of a massive engine block. The three powerful engines of the Hammerhead were placed in an inverted triangle configuration. They were mounted on a solid block of space frame, which held the main reactor, the hyperdrive, and the bulk of the engineering sections. Atop this section was one of three weapons turrets, able to turn a full 360 degrees, but with relatively limited vertical tracking. This was a deceptively powerful dual laser cannon controlled from the cockpit. And that's what it's talking about there. Unusual maneuvers. Let's go through that. It wasn't always possible for a Hammerhead to make a landing to take on cargo, as was the usual and safest practice. During one Alliance mission, and with Imperials in hot pursuit, one pilot had to keep his Corvette as steady as possible as the Lothal Rebels ship, the Ghost, flew in on its side with a cargo crate clamped under it, preparing for a handover. Hera Syndulla used all of her piloting skills to maneuver her ship in close, while Zeb Aurelius used Magnalocks to drop the cargo crate safely onto the freight lift on the Hammerhead. It wasn't easy, but the crew of the Ghost was fast learning that life as members of the Rebel Alliance rarely was. Hold configuration. Just in front of the engine block were two airlocks, set port and starboard, as well as the main crew and passenger quarters, in a relatively small hold. Between the rear half of the vessel and the wedge-shaped front was the primary cargo area. Small items of cargo could be brought up through long, narrow double doors in the floor by the cargo lift, and the main cargo hold was also the access route to the bridge and elevator leading to the passenger ramp in the head of the ship. This meant that the hold was rarely entirely filled. Instead, standard large cargo crates, sealed against the vacuum of space, were loaded into the lift. This was then raised and locked against the closed doors of the main hold, where powerful magnalocks held the cargo in place. Additional magnalocks on the base of the lift could hold more cargo crates. In this way, the Hammerhead Corvette could haul a reasonable amount of cargo for its size, though the crates were vulnerable to pirates. Another elevator led down to the base of the ship's head, where passengers exited via a gently sloping ramp down to the ground. This allowed an easy disembarkation route to the ship without using the airlocks. When landing, the Hammerhead extended a small landing strut from the bottom front surface of its head and two others from either side of the lower engine pod, though these were for stability rather than to hold the weight of the ship. To support the load, the craft's repulsor engines were left running. Up front, on either side of the cockpit, were the main dual laser cannon weapons of the Hammerhead, able to rotate 360 degrees in the vertical plane. Right here. I think you can see that. They had only limited tracking horizontally. Their rear arc was also severely compromised by the presence of the bulky engine block, so the ship relied on the top-mounted turret to handle any attacker coming from the rear. Despite its relatively powerful weapons, the ship had a major blind spot down and to the rear. However, with adequate shielding and a very solid hull, the vessel was usually able to survive forays into more dangerous parts of space. The cockpit had 4 crew stations, though the ship could easily be operated by 2 crew members if required. If the situation called for it, even a solo flyer could get the ship where it needed to be. Behind the command chairs in the middle of the room, A circular tactical display console was positioned for use in crew briefings, often led by a fleet group commander to coordinate their ships. Remaining neutral, the Princess's plan. After the rebel cell, Phoenix Squadron lost some of its ships while escaping an Imperial ambush on Gorel. Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan sent a gift of 3 Hammerhead Corvettes to Lothal for the rebels, under the guise of a relief mission. The ships were commanded by Princess Leia Organa. She had a plan. The ships would be stolen by the rebels, humiliating the Imperials in charge on Lothal, and maintaining Leia's and the House Organa's reputation for neutrality. Unfortunately, Lothal's Imperials had noticed that Alderaanian ships in particular were being stolen by rebels rather too often. They placed the gravity locks on the ships as they landed to keep them safe, while Leia distributed the supplies she had brought with her for Lothal's civilians. This forced the Princess and the rebels from Phoenix Squadron to improvise a distraction to allow the gravity locks to be removed and all 3 ships stolen. Looks familiar. The creators of Star Wars Rebels are fond of reaching into Legends, plucking certain elements from it to give longtime Star Wars fans a buzz. The Hammerhead Corvettes are one such example, with their basic formation being based loosely on the Hammerhead class cruisers from the video game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. To fit out the interior of the ships, the designers borrowed extensively from the famous CR-70 Corvette, which was what the Tantive 4 was, the Rebel Blockade runner, as seen in the original trilogy. So there you go. Also, it's important to note that the Hammerhead was seen in live action one time, and that was in Rogue One. It was the ship that hit the one Star Destroyer and pushed it down into the shield thing there on Scarif. Jakku Niima Outpost. So I'm not going to go too much into this because, I mean, if you watched The Force Awakens, you're familiar with Niima Outpost. However, important part was Niima Outpost got its name from its late founder, Niima the Hutt, who, generally respected for recognizing the opportunity crashed ships were represented, was killed by a bounty hunter. Niima was responsible for installing the navigational beacons in the area of Jakku. After her death, the male Krolute named Unkar Plutt took over control of the outpost. So, so one of the things this talks about is the fact that pretty much the only navigational beacons on the planet are around Niima Outpost. So that's significant. Food and salvage. Let's go through this. The primary way to get food on Jakku is to sell salvage, as food supplies are tightly controlled by Niima Outpost principal salvage dealer Unkar Plutt. The food mainly consists of Imperial survival rations taken by Plutt, however you say it, Plutt's hoodlums from Jakku's shipyard graveyard, or starship graveyard. To get the most or best rations, salvage must be clean and in the best possible working condition. Water, though, is also scarce, and washing table space and water is also rented from Plutt, with the cost deducted from the final value given for the salvage. If all is in working order, Plutt will pay more, but getting it to work is sometimes difficult. Tinkerers and traders in the bazaar of Niima Outpost will help recharge and repair salvage, obviously for a fair price, and this helps scavengers raise what Plutt will offer. Salvage is examined by Plutt daily as it sits in his old cargo container in the middle of Niima Outpost, and only once his price, is agreed upon will he deal out the rations. The other way to get food is from the crittermonger Baba Jabo. The male Nukosian roams the outpost, telling stories to local villagers and selling his wares. Nobody fully understands why Plutt allows Baba Jabo Babajo, Babajo. I think that was how you say it. Whatever, to take trade from him. So that's Babajo there. So there you go. And of course that's Unkar Plut there, and that's of course Ray. So Plut pretty much controls everything in Niima Outpost. Um, he just runs the whole thing, so that's important to note. Niima Outpost, seen in The Force Awakens, was constructed in the salt flats outside of Abu Dhabi, while orange-tinted sand dunes of Al-Khazar would serve as the backdrop for the scenes featuring Rey's home in the belly of the toppled At-At. Preparation was challenging, with sandstorms and scorching desert heat making life difficult for the set builders. The cast arrived to rehearse and film in Abu Dhabi in May 2014, and it was here that two of the film's main protagonists recorded their first scenes. Daisy Ridley spent her first day as Rey washing scavenged parts from downed Imperial Star Destroyer in Niima Outpost, while John Boyega, who played Finn, FN-218, was filmed escaping the crashed First Order TIE fighter and heading off towards the settlement. Not all of Jakku sets were created in Abu Dhabi, though. This sacred village of Tanul, where Poe Dameron is captured, was actually created in the cooler climes of Pinewood Studio near London. There you go. That happens to be everything in this issue. And so in this issue, we put a bunch of detail parts on the second mandible and end up putting that mandible completely together, so it's all rip-roaring ready to go. So that was issue 86. In 87, we're going to get a couple tower pieces that you use to mount the top to the bottom. I think is what those are for. We're going to get part of the lights for the rear, and this I assume is the top and the bottom for the rear, and then some cabling and a switch. So there you go. That is everything for issue 86. Again, next time will be issue 87. I want to thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you always.